saw the word start Hangout was there. It's like, oh yeah, that's a thing.
Guess it's a hello audience. I guess we've got
Odds
an
are,
audience
hello
now.
Adam.
Probably not. When you sent me the link last week, I watched the first 30 seconds of it. All right, so one thing that how we have like a username column and an experiment name column and all that in the output files. I figure that can just be in the file name, or you can tell because of the directory that it's in what the experiment name is. So I was going to sort of pull out information that was redundant in those files, just bring things down a bit.
Sorry, back up. I must have zoned out on something. So what are you talking about?
So
Books
like in
names?
the output files, we have a column that's just username, and it's their username over and over and over on every line of output.
Oh yeah.
But we don't need that if the username is in the file name.
Yeah, that's true.
So I was thinking while I'm like tweaking stuff of cutting out information that we don't need, but then if there's a reason for it to be in, I can just leave it in.
Yeah, I don't really have any good reasons it should be in there, other than if you want to access an individual participant's files, it's easier to know that, okay, I can just pull up the file and there's a column for it. I don't have to type it back in.
But I mean, if you were just looking at one participant's data, would you then look at the username column? Because then in that case, you'd be like, oh, well, I'm probably looking at like the focus column, or I'm looking at the response column.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you might do things like I've had stuff where I'm sending individual files to RAs,
Mm-hmm.
like a batch of them, and being like, okay, score all the things in this column, and then send me the files back.
Hmm.
So in the end, it's like, yeah, I'm using it to VLOOKUP, but I guess would that stop anything from getting data? I don't think so.
Another
Yeah, I
thing
don't
that
think it'll be a
I could
problem.
do, I mean, one thing that I was thinking of doing, I mean, especially for like experiment name, is that I wouldn't write it into the raw file, but then get data would just throw it on.
Mm-hmm. How would get data know it?
Well, get data knows the experiment name because of the directory it's in. So you've got like you're in data slash
Oh
or
yeah.
hyphen demo, you're in data hyphen new experiment.
Just the thought is that you do have a bit more flexibility if you want to, for whatever reason, look at each part of the data by itself. If you leave in the columns that we've got at the moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, although that doesn't seem intuitive to us right now, why you would want to do that, it's the sort of thing I can imagine coming up, and then it might be frustrating if you do end up in that situation.
I mean, I see how like having a username column is helpful, especially once you have all the merged data. But we don't need to put that information in the output files when that information is already there in the output file name. And then
But
get data can calculate the columns. So being like, okay, well, while I'm going through this, just put a username thing. Because then we also run into this weird issue where we have like a username column in our output file and our status file and our side data file. And
Oh yeah.
mm,
But what if people aren't using get data? Like I know Anthony, you've done it where you can just use like R scripts to be like, go through this folder and put it all into one big file or load it up.
yeah, I mean that's the sort of situation I'm thinking of, which is not necessarily necessarily something we want to encourage because the get data tool is obviously really really good if you
right,
have
I
plenty
sort
to
of
use it.
thought that you were using that tool because we didn't have get data for the multiple experiment branch.
I mean, I think the thing is I know how to do it without get data, and I hadn't taken the time. I still haven't taken the time to really use get data yet. So that's the thing. For someone who, for whatever, is just being lazy about using get data, you know, they prefer just to be able to get on with it. But at
Yeah,
the same time,
we shouldn't punish them for any reason. Like if they don't want to use it and they know how to do it on their own, I think that should be fine. Like if we tell them, okay, your data files are all in here, and they're like, okay, I'm gonna use that as for whatever my input is to the tool I'm using.
All right, that makes sense. Then I will leave in the extra information. I mean, it's like 3 columns, so it
Yeah.
doesn't change anything. On another note, let's see. Oh, this is the old version of Hangouts, where like you actually have the screen share button. All right.
Yeah, I think certain features are not in the new version of Hangouts, like I think the on-air stuff isn't in the new version yet. So whenever you do an on-air one, you get the old version, which is nice.
Well, anyways, for some other project I made, I have this function which just pulls out characters that you can't have. Well, actually, it makes a list of all the characters that I am allowing inside of a file name or a directory name, and it says if you're not one of these special characters or A to Z or 0 to 9, it's actually like a shortened version of something I use in the conductor, which is probably here. Yeah. So yeah, it basically just says, there's all these reasons. For example, these characters aren't allowed on these operating systems, and these operating systems don't allow this.
Yeah.
But basically, it means that if people type in weird names for their username, or they just type in like an accented character or something, this just strips it out. So we might want to consider doing that for our file name.
Which wouldn't be hard to do at all. Like you would literally just add that line into the user class, and now it'll write everything without those characters.
Yeah.
Or reject them.
Yeah, I mean, right now it'll just strip them out so that, you still have like the rest of the name. Like assuming they had like a username and then an apostrophe, or for some reason I think apostrophes get pulled out. It would do that. I guess in general though, we probably need to make sure that our file names are appropriate, like that you can't make your file name like ... / something, and then you're writing data to a new folder.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that. I guess someone could write that, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. We might check that somewhere else. I think let's see, where's login?
It wouldn't be in login. It'd probably be in user.
User class, yeah. Yeah, so I was taking a look at login, and I'm like, well, I know how to like find stuff that I want, but I think as a new user, I wonder how long it would take me to understand all of login.
Yeah, let me look at it again myself. Because I feel like it changed again after Adam did some things. And he redid the experiment class.
I think he just added a little bit at the end, which wasn't too bad.
Okay, that's not as bad as I thought. Yeah, the login is very much like high level. This is doing some stuff, but it's not explaining itself fully.
Okay, well, it looks like we pull out directory separator characters,
Oh
as
yeah.
well as a lot of these common illegal characters.
Yeah. So here, let me share my screen.
And probably, filter sanitize email plus this takes care of pretty much everything that I was doing.
So this line here, right? Like these two?
Yeah.
Username and illegal characters. Yeah, because the directory separators make sure that we're not going to have that smart little attack of let me jump up 3 levels and write my user data over login.
All right. So, I mean, that was just something that I brought up. I was like, by the way, I have this function, but yeah, I guess we should just keep that in mind whenever we have file functions.
Yeah, that'd be helpful actually for the sheet editor. Do you mind just going back to your function, Tyson, so I can just kind of see what you had in it?
Here. It's this line.
Break replace, that's it. Okay.
Yeah, and I think it's just like a combination of me looking up what's not allowed and a bunch of different things. And then I just made this note that if you're on a Windows system and you try and make a file name with or without an extension, you're not allowed to do that. So it's possible that someone could type their username as CON, and that would break the collector system. I didn't make a script to look for that, but it's something we could keep in mind.
That's worrying.
Yeah.
Do you mind copying and pasting? Sorry, it's just because you got quite a lot of characters. That into the chat.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing. That'd be cool. Thanks.
Well, that's not pretty in the chat.
Oh God.
All right. So next, we've talked about this before, but I think we were planning on making sure that the collector is PHP 5.3, and I don't know if we've stuck to that, because certain things like type hinting with arrays, I think we might still have that in. Let me see. Yeah, like here. I think this is not allowed in 5.3, right here.
Oh, really?
Um,
When did type hinting show up?
It might be 5.4. I'm not quite sure, but either way, we should be testing it. Like if we're going to be putting this onto the master soon, we'll probably want to install WAMP 5.3 or something and actually see if we can do everything.
Hmm.
So that'll be something to keep in mind.
Yeah. I'm trying to find the usage stats of PHP, but they're broken down not by point releases, but by full releases. So they have version 5 versus 4 versus 7 versus 3.
Yeah, I think 5.3 is pretty popular. Like when Sharon was trying to set up the collector on the UT servers, she was getting errors related to features not in 5.3.
Damn.
And it's not like the versions that we've been making the collector in, like 5.6 or whatever, have anything that we need. Like it's really just like type hinting with arrays, which are nice but not critical. I mean, it's just a matter of like take those out, and then we've got a lot more people that can use the collector.
Oh, wait, it's literally only for type hinting with arrays, not for type hinting with other stuff?
It's type hinting in general, but
Oh, okay.
I mean that in the sense that there's no like critical function that we would have to do this huge workaround to replace. I think it's
Yeah.
just small things here and there, little like shortcut notations that we might have to redo. But
We
easy
do a lot
stuff.
of type hinting inside the classes because some of them, like some of the methods, the constructs assume that you're sending them objects.
Hmm.
So like here, right? So construct name, and then we type in that you need an error controller.
And that might be in 5.3. Like it might just be arrays and scalar values. I'm not quite sure. But as long as we just test it on a 5.3 installation, we'll find out what we need to
Yeah.
pull back. Oh, so another thing that is kind of fun when I do my own side projects is just lots of like error checks and using trigger error and error handling. So if you look at my screen, we have this error get last, and it just says, has PHP tried to throw any error anywhere on the page so far?
Mhm.
And if you just do this thing, it's just like, if is not equal to null, then that means some error happened. And I think we should probably start writing to a file. This is also something that we've talked about before, and
Yeah.
something that we might want to give to Adam because he knows more about this stuff usually. But it'd be a cool thing to have.
And that's good to have just like a log somewhere so we can stomp out bugs a little easier instead of waiting until they really are problematic.
Yeah. Plus, when people are trying to ask for help, and they'll be like, "Oh, I'm getting this problem where it's crashing around this trial and it's saying this error message," but that's like never enough information, and then you have to test it boringly, and that's no fun. Better if there's just a file.
Yeah, send me errorlog.txt or .csv.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So this is important. When I was trying to write when I was trying to do the get data thing, basically the error, I was like flagging bad IDs before.
Mhm.
To do that, it's helpful to have like a status end file that marks end of a session versus complete end of an experiment, like they're actually done.
Yeah.
But the right end thing is it's like got a to do, not functional yet. So I don't know if you were planning on taking care of that, Mikey.
Oh, wait, is that totally not functional? Because I thought we are writing an end status on done.
I'm not sure. I saw this to do, and I was like, okay, well, I'll just ask him about it. But
Let me see if we're actually. That actually might not be true anymore. It might just be that we didn't update the note.
Okay. So let's see, we've got session state being set to do stuff.
Line 27, status equal write in session start time.
Okay. So what would be the easiest way for this to calculate? Like, what's the flag we use to determine if they have another session coming up?
Let's
Is
see.
it state? Is it if it's break? That's from new session or something?
Yeah, if it's break, that means you finished this session and now you're at the done page.
Hmm.
If it's done, that means you are done with the entire experiment.
So then, I think what we should do here, so right after we unserialize status, add the state to it and then write it.
Okay.
Because then, like, that line would have like a, oh, I'm on a break, or I'm on break 2 if someone made a new type of new session, or I'm on, whatever's the proper finish thing.
Well, couldn't I do this, right? So write in right now, I'm passing it the start time. I could just also pass it the state.
Yeah.
And then, have the other thing add basically another data point.
Yeah,
I write all these data and then everything from condition, and then I array to line it. So that should be a quick fix. I'll push it in a minute.
Cool. Oh, on the topic of array to line, do you guys ever think it's weird that every other file writing function goes like the file name argument first or the file resource first and then the data, and array to line is backwards?
Wait, which way is array to line?
It's
actually the fact that I don't know tells me that we should go with whatever you think matters more. Because if I don't use it enough to even know how it works, then if it's working changed, it would be transparent to me.
All right. Well, it's just like things like file put contents and file get contents and fput CSV. Usually, you do like the file name or the file resource, and then the data that you want to put in the file. And then array to line is data first and then the file name, and it's just inconsistent. That doesn't seem to be a good thing, and it would be just an easy thing to swap the argument order.
Yeah, definitely. I think that makes it more intuitive to swap it around.
I mean, on the other hand, the function is called array to line, so in terms of the arguments inside the name of the function, it's one way. But then we could just call it, CSV add row. So I think that would be a good thing to do. If you guys don't object, I think I'll do that.
Yeah, that sounds fine to me.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, so you know how we used to calculate RT by just recalculating it every second and writing it into the value, but then we switched so that now it calculates that on submit?
Yeah.
We calculate focus, and then we write it into the input value constantly, so that if I'm looking at the task, and then I have like the debugger open, and I'm trying to fiddle with something, add classes and stuff. Oh, what the heck? Do I not have a focus on the survey? Let's see. Where would that be?
The focus is in experiment, I believe.
Oh, right. Surveys are different because I break the form. Let's try a different trial type.
Although you really should, make it so it works in a survey.
I mean, it does work. It's just I calculate it in a different spot. But all right. So here's attention check. Oh, by the way, attention check currently doesn't record fails, I think. So I...
Oh, it might just be because we pulled the code out from another place.
Yeah, so I mean, I actually have it updated in this one. I can just commit it as part of my get data commit. But okay, so see here how like the...
Makes it easier.
What's that?
Oh, I was going to say you can commit it separately right now. It's easier. Functionality shows up sooner, and the get data is more clearly just about get data.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it would be better just to pull dev and then do it because like I'm working on a different branch. But yeah, I can take care of that. But the point is, like this constantly recalculating means that like if I'm like trying to fiddle with something, it like interferes sometimes with the button clicks, and sometimes you're trying to type and it's like misbehaving, and like it won't let me always click things easily, and I don't know, it seems to cause problems if we're constantly rewriting the DOM for Chrome debugger. So, it'd be helpful just for debugging reasons if we could sort of calculate this in the JavaScript and then on the form submit, write it the same way that we're doing RT.
Yeah, sounds fine to me.
Cool.
And it would also be nice because it'd be a little bit more hidden from the user. Because I know if anyone pops up in the debugger, that keeps getting highlighted because it shows you, hey, this is changing every fifth of a second and it's going down.
Yeah. All right, and then so the other thing I wanted to do is actually show off what I've got with side data going on so far.
Nice.
So I showed you the side data class in general before, but then I rewrote it to not store the data, like in a sort of long form with lots of rows. Now it just does like there's a header row and there's a content row, and it's just those two rows. But other than that, it works the same, where like while you're using it in the experiment, you're using it as like a three-dimensional array. So it's like array, attention check, 1, and then an actual row of data, like fails is 2, and RT is 6,000 or something.
Mm-hmm.
But then just for like writing it to a file, it'll sort of condense that with underscores. And then actually using it in scoring, I actually thought it was pretty nifty how it's easy to use, but also very efficient. So if we look at the experiment.php, that is the actual page that people navigate to, so the one inside code, what I changed was I just said if is set some variable called side data, then check if they've also got like a your column for a side data label. If not, just make this blank. And then whatever they specified as the side data, add it to the side data class. And then when this happens, it sets an internal flag that says, I've got unwritten data. Like I'm storing it in the session, but I'm not storing it in the separate side data file. And then, after all your post trials are done and you're writing your trial content to a file, you'll also check, oh, by the way, does side data have unwritten data? Then record that. Which means if you don't use any trial type that uses side data, like for example, you don't have any surveys or you don't have attention check, you just, you've all got, work pair stuff, then you never bother with this file. Like it exists, but it takes up, you're not storing any memory in it, and you're not wasting time writing an empty file over and over. Mm-hmm. So very efficient in that sense, which I thought was cool. And then also using it wasn't too hard. So for example, this is the attention check. Where's the scoring for this one? Yeah, here's the scoring. So after I do, data is equal to post, I just say, okay, well, side data is equal to this array, and I'm using the data that I want to put there. So like you could have just done something like this, where you just say side data is equal to data is equal to post, and that would have just taken the entire collection of data from this trial and put it on the side. But I figured, information like focus and stuff, when you're checking that, you're checking the, the output column of all of your trials, not just your side data column. So you don't need that information repeated hundreds of times down the side. Versus this information, might be different sort of filter information that you're using. So it's easy to create the side data. You just say, well, this is the data I want to put on the side. And then I do something similar for surveys, which I thought was kind of cool. Where's my survey scoring? I thought I had it open. No, I'll just find it. So basically it says that it grabs everything except for the sort of, standard trial output, RT and focus and all that. And then if you don't have a column for side data label, it'll calculate one based on the specific survey that you're using. So for example, if you're on the demographic survey, this will end up being survey underscore demographics and then underscore and the specific values, like age is this and so on. So if we take a look at it, let's see, surveys, and I fill this out. And then I've got in the data folder, I've got a side data folder, and then here's my data. And so I've got, survey, demographics, gender, and age, and so on. And it writes data in a way that it cannot overwrite data, so that if I take another demographic survey, then it'll call itself like demographics 2 or something. And then, just get added to the side of this again. And then in the output, you'd have to decide, like, oh, I want to look at the second time they took the survey or something. Or just in the procedure file, you could give it a unique label. So inside here, I guess you could do it in the stimuli file too. Both would work as long as you have the variable somewhere. Where's so then you could just have a column, let's see, side data label, and then I could call this first survey, and this one could be, second or so on. And then this will be sort of that intermediate section here. So, I mean, that turned out to be not too hard, which means that for get data, it's basically this file takes care of the side data stuff, as well as the status files, which I decided to keep in their own separate files so that it's really easy to look up, who's reached an end of experiment. But I still could put it in here. But I think actually having a separate status file is probably the easiest way to go about that. And then basically I'll just be doing get data, which I think should... Well, I was going to finish it up today, but depending on how long it takes to Well, I guess Mikey, when we talked about putting in that state flag in the end thing, if that just takes a minute, then get data should be pretty...
Already done. I'm about to make the push right now.
Awesome.
So literally, so yeah. Can you see my screen or where am I?
Yeah. Oh no, I can't.
Okay, so let me share the monitor. I think this is the one. No, it's the wrong monitor. Oh, we're gonna have a weird you're gonna be looking at yourselves for a second here. Oh no, it's happening. Okay, yeah, so here it is. So these are the only two changes that were needed, which is on status.
Argument.
Yeah, here, let me show you. Add that argument there to done. Mm-hmm. You just say given start time, you give it start time and state. And status, I just go to where I write end. Add state, defaulted to not given, and then in this data array, add state is one of the keys we're writing.
Cool.
And that should be it.
Nice. All right. Then I think in terms of arranging the data, that's like the last thing that I needed to take care of before I start just merging it all together. And then, yeah. So get data should be ready pretty quickly now.
Nice. And it sounds like it'll probably be faster than the old get data because you're doing some of this processing kind of while they're running instead of having to calculate everything post hoc.
Yeah, I mean, side data should really help with that.
All right, so if you pull dev, you'll have the new version of status now.
Cool. Yeah, speed is important in the new get data thing because if people are using multiple experiments and they're merging, thousands of participants, I actually found we used to have those memory issues, Mikey. So I had a get data file and I wanted to go calculate intrusion. So I just tried to, get from file the get data results, and I ran out of memory even on a local host, and I was like, ah, crap.
Oh.
So actually, there are memory limitations that I need to keep in mind, but should be doable because I'll just be writing to the output stream. Not too difficult. But PHP is not meant for these enormous 150,000 line data things to be read into memory all at once.
Yeah, it doesn't like that.
Yeah.
That's a case where using R or Python or something locally is probably much better.
Yeah, I should learn something besides PHP. Being a one-trick pony has its limitations.
Yeah, you know HTML and CSS and JavaScript. I mean, the web is got a lot of facets that go into any project.
Yeah, I know web development stuff, but I should, for these other projects where I want to calculate intrusions or something, I should learn some non-web coding for non-web purposes.
Yeah, that's true.
I suppose R would be good for that.
I keep attempting to learn R and making no progress, but also most attempts are not like I'll really figure this out. It's like if I can in the next few hours I'll crack this, but otherwise
Yeah.
I'll keep doing my other work.
That's how I tried to learn R the first 3 or 4 times, and
I'm about
just
4 times deep.
I mean, for me, I got a 2-day course, and then after committing 2 full days to it, then it was just a lot easier to do. But it's just finding time to get the foundation.
Yeah, I think that's my problem is that I've never gotten that foundation. Like I'm always kind of just poking around and like looking at help files and entering, copy pasting basically things that are already in help files and being like, okay, well I think it's working, but I don't fully understand what I'm doing.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Once you get the foundation, you can just, Google anything you want to do after that point. But it just takes a while.
Well, it's nice that I am theoretically 2 days away from being functionally not illiterate in R.
Oh yeah, yeah. If you find the right, I mean, I think my friend recommended Coursera. Coursera does an R course, so I think if you just you know Coursera, right?
Yeah, I think we started one of those. Weren't you there with us, Tyson, at one point? We were going to all learn R and nobody learned R.
Yeah, I think I didn't even bother attending after the second meeting.
I mean, yeah. Well, it's available online, and I've heard good things. So because I've got a guy in my office who's kind of, trying to get into R, but if you don't really have the right starting experience, it can really put you off.
Mhm.
It just became more and more daunting starting R because each time I tried to do it by myself, it just got nowhere. So.
Yeah, it's tough.
But I think this course is good.
And the main problem I've had is that SPSS and JASP are useful enough that it's hard to invest time in R to like relearn basics that you already know how to do. Like I want the advanced functionality because I can already do all the simple stuff I need in other programs. But I want the stuff that R can do uniquely. But to get there, you kind of have to work your way through basics, which I think is what I keep losing momentum on. When you're like relearning how to do an ANOVA, it just feels like, why am I spending my time doing this? I know how to do an ANOVA already.
Yeah. I think for me it was actually weirdly helpful was I was writing up my thesis at the time, so I'd done all my data collection. And I think I think this sped it up in one way, but SPSS just got uninstalled from my computer out of the blue. And so I think I was still by that point I was moderately committed to R, but that really helped.
That's what I need, like a good impetus of like you cannot do your work until you learn a tool. Like I will learn it then.
Yeah. But it is one of those things where if you've got a objective that needs to be achieved by later that day or later that week, then R is not ideal. You kind of need to just give yourself a lot of time, in my experience.
I will eventually learn it. I believe in my abilities to potentially learn R. I mean, it seems like it should be easier because I know a bunch of people who don't know how to program but can use R. And they look at me like I'm amazing because I can write code. It's like the code isn't that complicated. It's R. It's just like all the constructs of what you have to know how to do. Programming is like a blank slate. You just start writing.
Yeah, I think the fact that you've done so much web coding would help because obviously there's a lot of overlap in syntax between languages, but there are a lot of times you just can't get you do something which looks right, and then you just can't work out what exactly the problem is. So I can imagine, yeah, it's not really it is helpful, but not really sufficient.
It's
Starting
still
with
its own beast you have
programming.
to conquer.
Sorry, say that again.
Oh, it's still like its own beast you have to conquer. It doesn't really give you that much of a leg up to.
I mean, I think it gives you a leg up once you've got past a certain point. So once
Okay.
you've got the basics, then the general thinking that you get, a way of looking at code that you get once you've been coding in other languages is helpful. But yeah, you still have to learn exactly what the specific syntax is, um, which is not totally counterintuitive, but it's still arbitrary. You're just learning
Yeah, it's
rules.
just essentially like foreign language learning. Map this command to this idea.
Yeah, yeah, basically.
Hmm.
Uh, are you done with your updates then, Tyson?
I think so. If you guys had feedback for the method of turning, custom scoring data over to the side data class, I mean, does this
And
seem simple enough? Because on the one hand, since it's so optional, I wondered if people would just not realize it's there, sort of like what Trial Tester was before we, made tools.
yeah,
Um, but it should be obvious when it shows up in the data that something's different about the custom scoring of attention check and surveys, and hopefully people can find it there. Probably not by looking at the surveys custom scoring, but attention check is actually a really good example of this because there's no data calculations to do. It's just put this in the side data.
yeah.
What do you guys think?
I think it's good. I mean, especially if it's as simple as what I'm looking at, like that is nice and straightforward. And whenever we explain to people how scoring works, we'll just make sure to like show them a really simple case and then show them attention check and be like, okay, here's how you can record data that you want to be able to have it appear on every line of your output if you're going to use it. Like people do it a lot for like filtering. Like, okay, I want to filter by the
Right,
age at
yeah.
which they learned English, the country they're from, and if like that's the kind of data you want on every line, here's how you get it on every line.
Yeah. Although surveys are going to do it automatically.
Yeah.
So that's actually one of the reasons I wanted to try and minimize the amount of data writing I was doing, because if people are doing a survey study where they just have 15 different surveys and each one is like 2 or 3 pages and it's like 1,000 questions, I didn't want to be wasting a lot of time, interacting with data that they only needed for one moment. But I think the solution came out pretty lightweight and not overly complicated. It just has that flag that says, okay, it's time to write data now. Go ahead and do that. And then all the ways before, like if you want to use this information, there are plenty of functions like get the last time you did an attention check thing, or get all the attention checks, or get, I labeled specifically the second attention check, get that label of attention check. So there's functions for also getting this data out if you want to use it in a trial type for like midway filtering of telling participants that, you failed an attention check, you can't participate anymore, or at least
them
give
a good
feedback.
reason. Like, hey, I looked at the last time I did this task and you blew it, therefore you are done.
Yeah, something like that. So hopefully this gets some use out of it, but at least for surveys it's going to solve the thing that I want surveys to do, so that's good.
Yeah, and it seems easy enough to add to other things because I could imagine adding it like, inside of scoring, if this value is equal to this, make side data equal to some other thing, and then it'll get written in my output as I know, like, okay, I flagged this person essentially. Like
Yeah,
this
so yeah,
response they gave didn't make any sense. Flagged him as probably not paying attention.
yeah, and then there's like these public functions for, record the data early, or add data on your own if you're doing some interesting script. So it's possible to work with this data. The only thing is I just made sure that you can't break any data, like you can't overwrite anything, so there's no chance of you not realizing that you already used the name demographics before and overwriting demographics. So the data should be safe.
Yeah, which is nice. It's always nice to tell people like no matter what you do, you can't make this data go away.
Yeah.
Then they feel a little bit more free to kind of attempt stuff.
Oh yeah, on that topic, we should also get that JavaScript, input, like checking inputs for sharing a name, because it's still possible that you make a survey where one of the question names is called focus, and then that
Hmm.
you know breaks the focus input that we use for storing the focus. So we should probably put that in. I mean, that might be a 2.1 feature.
Yeah, so just scan the page for all inputs and see, hey, do any of these share a name? And
Yeah.
if they do, just basically throw up a big thing saying like, email the experimenter, tell them things have gone wrong, copy paste his code.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So it's like if you have more than one input name that doesn't have the brackets after to turn it into an array in PHP. I mean, because sometimes I use that on purpose, though. Like you can do something like input hidden value is equal to false, and then after that you do a checkbox with the same name where the value is true. And that way, rather than submitting either yes or nothing, you submit either yes or no. It just looks nicer.
Hmm.
But then that would actually flag in this situation. And we might have to do something like force numeric, where you add a class if you know there's going to be duplicates for this part. Um,
Yeah.
so,
So it adds a little bit of complication, but not too bad.
yeah, not too bad. I mean, in terms of what it saves, very nice. Still worth it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I've had cases where, like, I copy and paste an input row because I suddenly want two things, and then I change, like, the class name instead of the input name, and then I don't get any data for an experiment, and that's always sad.
That is tragic.
All right, well, that actually is everything for me. So, Anthony, if you want to do your thing.
Yeah, sure. So I'll just
I feel like we're really
I think mine's
quiet today or something. Is Adam like the life of the party, and I just didn't realize it, or what's going on?
I don't know. I don't know if it feels any. It feels the same to me, which is that I'm kind of in a semi-daze from having woken up minutes before the meeting began.
See, I'm on the other end. Like, I'm going to go to bed right after this meeting. So,
Oh well, then you're close to UK time then.
yeah, I've spent all week trying desperately to get back to American time, and then yesterday I was like, oh, I'll take a nap in the middle of the afternoon, and that turned out to be 6 hours of sleep, and I'm like, oh, guess that didn't work.
Yeah, that's brutal.
So I mean, I've not got that much more to show. It's just I think I'm just at the point now with some minor stylistic editing that it's ready for pirating.
Hmm.
So update for Tyson. You remember that we had this admin only issue.
Hmm.
So it was fine for everything except for the pop-out window. But Mikey and I talked about it last week and found a relatively straightforward solution. So I think last time I talked to you, I said I wasn't going to use pop-out windows, but actually it works fine with the pop-out window now.
You spammer.
Pop-outs
So
are good
the
when you intend them to be that way. It's bad when just like they get served at you randomly.
Yeah.
So, the only kind of new thing. Oh, and so the other thing to talk about is the post checks. So checking that what was getting posted was legitimate.
Hmm.
I've put in some checks, and I mean, I think I'm happy basically for if the RAs can break it, then they break it and then tell me how they broke it. But I've got checks on all the pages to kind of constrain what can be posted in terms of it's only restricted to the inputs on each page that I've said that they should be coming from. And then I've in the case where you can delete files, I've put so that you can only delete files that already exist. Sorry, you can only delete files the stimulus and procedure files. So they shouldn't be able to delete anything that's not a stimulus or procedure file.
Good. Yeah, I mean the main thing for like input security is file names specifically, because if you can do weird things where you overwrite PHP files or you navigate up branches, and yeah, it's true that we should let people break their own experiment, but if we have some shared server, we don't want them breaking each other's experiment.
Yeah. Actually, and so one issue I had was, and it's quite a basic one. I've kind of done this by listing illegal characters.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys can see, you can't see my whole page, you can only see that. All right, let me just change the screen share because I'm only showing you the
browser.
That's here. Let's try it again. Okay. And right. So basically, I've got just this array of some illegal things. So the main one is just to stop them putting in any PHP code. I'm making that illegal. To stop them up browsing, I want to put in both the slashes. But
oh yeah, so you have to put 2 backslashes in a row so that you backslash the backslash and turn it into a character.
Oh wait, really?
Yeah.
I figure it's going to be something simple like that. Yeah, because you're basically escaping the quotation mark if you only have one backslash. Cool. All right. I figured there's a simple solution.
Yeah, it's bizarre. When you want to write like a string to put into a JavaScript regex or something, you have to put 4 in a row so that you have 2 left over, so that you have 1 left in the regex. It's kind of fun.
Oh my god, that is ridiculous.
That's crazy. Cool. All right. Actually, while we're looking at this code, though, is there anything else obvious that I should be banning in terms of security issues, character-wise?
Well, I mean, for file names, the best thing is just to have a list of predetermined stuff, and then if they're creating files, make sure that, I mean, you could actually use the function I sent over, just make sure that, one, they don't have illegal characters, and then I think that function also doesn't allow a period anywhere, so, like, you could have a legitimate period, like if it's the middle of a file name, but I actually just don't allow it any, just in case they have some weird way of writing like a period and then an invalid character and the second period, and that ends up turning into an up directory navigator. I'm just like, you know what, this character's not allowed.
Yeah.
I feel comfortable forcing people not to put periods in their file names. That's fine with me.
Yeah, that is like.
I mean, really, for something this basic, we could just say you're only allowed, A to Z and numbers and maybe hyphens, and then you're not allowed to do anything else.
Oh, so we actually define a very narrow range of characters in there as they can use.
Yeah, that's usually the recommendation, is that you specifically allow something and then everything else is banned, and that way you don't forget some combination. You're like, oh yeah, technically it wouldn't have broken if I had allowed you to use this character, but I didn't want to think through whether or not it could have, so I just didn't let you use it. And that's actually what this does. This says if it's not one of these defined characters, then take it out. So you could actually shorten that to like, if it's not 0 to 9, lower A to lower Z, or upper A to upper Z, then strip it out.
Okay, so basically, we only want 0 to 9.
Oh, well, you need, so it's actually, you need that starting bracket and then the caret, and that's the command that says, yeah.
Okay. That right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's called caret. Right?
It's called different things. Caret is one word for it.
I've heard caret a lot.
Okay,
What do you
cool.
call
I don't know what it's called. I think I called it a hat. But
Yeah, I think I've heard that too. I've heard hat.
In hat, yeah, you get that in psychology from stats, where you're like mu hat.
And physics, right? That comes in physics.
Yeah, y hat, x hat.
Oh yeah, and we don't want that.
Right.
So are those square brackets doing anything, or are they just being listed?
I think those square brackets are like literal square brackets. Like I'm saying, you can have square brackets, and that's why I have like the double slash, because then that's what that's doing is first I'm escaping the backslash, so that the backslash escapes the right square bracket.
Mm. Right, I see.
Yeah.
Cool. So I'm reducing it to that. Does that work?
Well, I guess you
I
don't
feel
need
like.
colon equals at symbol.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Yeah. So now
Yeah.
that's allowing space 0 to 9, A to Z, lower A to lower Z. I think that's good.
Okay, cool. So I'll tidy
And
that up a little bit.
maybe the should the hyphen be in there as well?
You mean the normal height, like
Yeah.
that? So if that's
Oh well, the
uh,
way you'll need to escape that. So just
okay. So
just two
escaping. Is
backslashes before it.
that right?
Backslashes.
Sorry, wrong way around.
Yeah. I think that'll do
Okay.
it. What do you think, Mikey? Any other obvious symbols we should
I'm
allow?
trying to think of. No, I mean that seems reasonable. I kind of just tend to err on the side of like let's just throw out everything but alphanumeric
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's good. You can leave
because
it
it
like
just
that.
makes it a lot easier because you're like, well, they're just less likely to figure out something very clever if the only thing that's going to show up after I run it through the filter are letters and numbers. They basically can't do what they want to do. If they want to try to do malicious things.
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to do that with usernames, but then we've got people using their email addresses, and email
Mm,
addresses allow so many characters. Like, oh man, that makes our job harder.
Yeah, do you
yeah.
know like Gmail? You can add dots to your email address and it actually doesn't change the recipient. So when you registered, you can register like let's say you have Tyson Kerr at Gmail.
Hmm.
You can register Tyson.Kerr and Tyson Kerr, and those both go to you, or T.Y. the whole way down, and it will still send to Tyson Kerr.
Oh, really? Wherever you put the full stop.
Yeah, so people use
Uh,
that to register for. It's how you can tell who's been spamming you. Is that you can add like dots at different places, and when you get emails to that recipient, you'll be like, oh, they sent it with the dot after the third Y, after the Y. I
yeah.
signed up for these set of sites with that dot, and that's where it's coming from.
Hmm, that's interesting. Because I've had that in the past where I thought mine was just Anthony dot Haffy, and then
Mhm.
someone sent me the email without the dot, but I didn't realize there was all that flexibility and could be anywhere.
Yeah, I think Gmail's probably doing something like what we're doing, and they're just stripping out the dots. So on their end, they basically don't exist, or at least for when they figure out who to send it to, they filter out the dots. So with or without, you get it to the same person.
That's cool. So at the moment, all I've got is if any of the inputs have illegal characters, then you should get an error. So let's see if that works as intended. There you go.
Oh, use the cool warnings you were showing me.
Yeah, so I actually got to work this time. So yeah, so I mean, I like these. And so the way I'm thinking I'm going to do it is that you'll just revert to the last legitimate one, but give them a warning that why it's not been updated.
Did
And
you find that somewhere? Or did you make it yourself?
I found it somewhere. It's they're called what are they called? I want to say bounded. I always forget what they're called actually. Um, they're called something. Do you know what they're called, Mikey?
The bootstrap alerts, I
Bootstrap.
think.
That's it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Bootstrap alerts.
I think I
That's what
still
they're
have the
called.
tabs open from last week somewhere because I was looking at them again, and be like, these are nice. Oh yeah, exactly. There it is.
Yeah, bootstrap alerts. Um, yeah. So that's that's it. It's just the bootstrap alerts and the posts being done. And the only thing I think I really want to tidy up is the stim list, because a couple of weird things happen if I choose. First of all, I mean, there's just a space at the top which I don't fully understand
Wait,
why.
what don't you understand?
Well, I mean, it starts off with a space at the top. Like I don't know. I mean,
Hmm.
there's something really dumb that I've done, presumably, which is just made the formatting every starts lower.
Or there's like a mark
And oh,
somewhere.
yeah. Um, and then what'd be great actually is if these Bootstrap alerts were put in front of everything. So if by default, anytime I use the Bootstrap alert, it will be a div that's in front of everything else. And I don't know how straightforward that is.
Well,
Is
you want
that
to put them in front of.
something you guys know? Yeah, so that on any page that the Bootstrap alert comes up, it would be yeah, on the front of the page.
Isn't there like a Z position you can set, Tyson? I know in
What do you mean
CSS
on the front of the page?
So, for example, if I got the Bootstrap alert here, it would just be in the center, and
also
then
like floating above everything, so not within the flow of the document, but sort of like a transparency sitting on top that says, "Hey, something's gone weird."
yeah, basically, yeah, it'd just be on top.
Yeah, you can
I
use position fixed to do that.
Okay. Oh, I mean, I'll have another go at it. Maybe I did something because I tried a few things, and that sounds like one of the things I tried. I'll just try it now, actually. So if I go class load warning, um,
Oh, well, let's just edit the class.
the class is yeah. I'm just kind of more for proof checking here, so I'll know
Oh,
exactly why I'm wrong. Because I'll fix the class later. Yeah, that'd be idea. Position wait fixed, and
yeah.
then mpx width. No,
I would do left
left.
0, right 0.
Right 0. You mean top 0?
No, no, if you do left 0, right 0, it stretches across the whole thing, so it makes like a bar that does the whole
Oh,
thing.
okay. Oh, cool. All right, let's try that. Right 0 mpx. Then we'll see what happens here. Okay, well maybe I did something really basic wrong. Is
Well,
anything
you need
looking
to
wrong
make
here?
you have to
Oh, I'll
make
get
the
rid of the top.
show up somewhere, right? Like you have to trigger the error.
Oh yeah, of course. Sorry. Yeah, because the error is getting deleted each time. I'll do the same thing again. As well. All right, that's perfect. That's exactly what I want.
Nice.
Cool. I'll just change that to the. Yeah, it's very straightforward actually. So I'll just change that to the class. Cool. Okay. And then once I've done that, I mean, I think it's all good to go. It's all ready for piloting once I've done the changes we just talked about today.
Cool.
So I would say, yeah, send us an email once all the things are in the dev branch, and then we'll just tell RAs to, hey, poke around here, try to do stuff, look for weird errors, and if you can figure out why they happened, or at least get us to steps that we can do to replicate them, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. See. All right. No, I actually have to find this whole new class. All right. Yeah. So I mean, this would still remain as a separate. So this would still be in the GUI branch.
Wait, don't put a style tag before your HTML tag. Put it inside your
Oh
head.
no. Shit, sorry. Talk and inside the head.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. That was poor. I'm just gonna do this later rather than trying to talk and do it at the same time. So it's the.
Yeah, that's always where
So,
I
yeah,
make the biggest mistakes, where you do like things that don't make any sense when you're trying to explain to people what you're doing. You're like, let me show you how to do it, and then you do something that doesn't make any sense. And you're like,
Yeah.
never mind, I'm not going to show you anything. Forget everything. And try to Men in Black blank their minds out.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. So yeah, I'll still post that on the GUI branch, and then yeah, that's everything from me actually. I think update twice.
All right. And I'm trying to see if I have anything. I'm pretty sure I don't. Let's see. Oh, I added. Oh, yeah. Actually, I do have stuff. I forgot I did these. So on some of the trial types, what do you guys think of? I know Tyson has brought up something like this as a universal thing, and I think at the time I was like, I don't think it universally is a good idea. But what I want to do is find some trial types where we can add easy optional things. Like I did it for the instruct trial type. I wanted to, because I was teaching groups how to use the program, and I realized a really common thing that people want that they have no idea how to do is how to change the size of certain trial types. So like on the instruct, I added the option that if you have a column called font size that has a numeric value, I'll just treat that as a percent of whatever the typical size is for the entire body. So it's a pretty lazy like CSS edit, but it's actually really nice in that I can just say, oh, that's how you make it bigger. Like I don't have to explain anything about HTML or p tags and H1s and H2s. I go, oh, if you want the text on that screen bigger, put a value in there like 150, and now it's 150% the size.
Actually, what we could do is inside trial types that might use something like that, like a user setting for a font size.
Or like things like background color or font color, because that's the kind of stuff people want to do all the time.
Yeah. I was thinking like font color and background color are the other ones that people would want to do like that. But if we just have all of those inputs that are meant to be styled by the user through the procedure, you can put a class on them, like user styled, and then at the top of the page you could have something like, let's see. And you do.
Like basically load user styles type method, which would just read all the columns that could be user style things and apply them.
Yeah. And this way, right, so like they could actually type in anything they want for font size. Like they could type 12 point or 200% or 18 pixels or something. And then same thing for color. They can give a hex code, or they can say blue.
Yeah, that should work. I'm trying to think of the case I used it. How did I do this? Let me look. I think it's in the instruct trial type and dev.
And then at the bottom, we could even have something like, just as like a catch-all at the bottom, we just throw out custom styles. And that way they can write their full CSS syntax of like, border is equal to 2 pixel solid black, and, outline is this, and box shadow is this. And then,
but I guess,
advanced.
So we're telling them to attach the user styled class to things they want styled, because right now, like, okay, here's my implementation, which was like I did this in 3 minutes in class just to give it to a group. Hey, if font size is not empty and it's numeric, size is equal to font size plus the percentage. Open a style tag. Font size of the body is this. So I just scaled everything up. Oh, and this was me testing things.
Are you screen sharing?
Oh, am I not? God damn it.
Yeah.
That would make it a lot easier. Okay, so we'll go with this one. Okay, yeah, so here it is. So I added this to the instruct trial. Let me delete this. So I just say, hey, if font size is not empty and it's numeric, then size is font size plus a percentage. Open a style tag, font size equal to size. And I do it on the whole body, because if not, what you get is, like, if you try to select elements, you have to know which trial type they're doing, or you have to be very clever about what you're resizing, so you don't resize things like the button. But if people just want to use it as a really, like, coarse make bigger, I figured a number which is a percent and styles the body makes everything bigger. It's almost like a zoom. But I don't know if that's a good execution. I just know a group needed it pretty quickly, so I just said, okay, do it like this.
Right. I mean, so actually I think this would be pretty similar, except for instead of styling the body, I'm just styling like bits of information. That way, for example, if there's like, if it's a study trial type, for example, and then we've got styling on the study container, and then we've got, styling on the individual word that says float left and all that. And then finally at that one you put on the class user styled. And then at that point, if they've written like a font, if they have a font size column, then we can check if that font size column is like an actual font size they can use, or if it's blank, we can just have it not do anything.
Yeah.
But then if they put like, oh, I want this to be 16 point or 32 point or 48 point, then it gets applied right on the word. So it's actually closest to the thing they want to style, and we don't have to worry about cascades.
Oh, so we'd be smart about selecting what the content is of the trial type and then use those values to scale just the content. Because, yeah, I have, like, the next button gets bigger when you do it my way.
Yeah. So I would be saying that we put this user styled, which by default does absolutely nothing. It's just a hook. But we put it on, like, the study word or the text instructions. I mean, I guess conceivably they might want to be able to have direct access to the body to say like background color is blue if they're doing something like that. But I think it'd be more likely that they'd want to just, well, I guess, yeah, actually thinking about that, maybe just styling the body and having this sort of gross magnification is helpful for the non-programmer.
Yeah, because I'm also, in my head I'm like, how much do they know? Like, how much do I have to explain to them? Or what's going to require the least amount of explanation, I guess, to get across, make it bigger, like, in their simple, because that's kind of how the question's always posed to me, like, hey, this is too small. I want it to be bigger. And I don't want to get into, like, CSS and selectors, so I just go, like, okay, make a column called font size, and if you want any of the instructs to be bigger, set a bigger number. 100 is the default size, which is 100%. So if you put 300, that's 300% of whatever it normally is. So I mostly did it that way to make it really easy, because then I can just use is numeric. I didn't have to check does it have EM or points or pixels. I figured the most lazy solution is it has to be a number and it's a percentage that I'm going to interpret it as.
Yeah, so actually, I think we should probably combine these two things in. So like if they just put a number, make the assumption that they don't know any CSS and like, oh, they probably meant percentage or something. But if they do know, for example, that they want it to be specifically 16 point, like they're trying to replicate some 16-point experiment or something, they can just type in point and we'll let them use that. And then the other thing is still use my user style to style directly on the elements that are showing stuff. But if like one of the settings that we find is a background color, put that one on the body. So then, rather than on like the element itself, because that wouldn't make sense to have background color just on like the word span, and it's just really tiny.
Yeah.
And I think that would actually let people kind of handle a lot of the CSS they need in a dynamic way, if for either they don't want to change the code because they don't know how, or it's such a simple thing, like I just want to make a font size experiment where I show some small and some large, or some with a blue background and some with a yellow background. And then it's really easy to put in the procedure file, and it means that that information actually ends up in the output. So yeah, something like a CSS hook, where we can make some pretty simple assumptions, and then if they don't like those assumptions, they can still edit the trial type directly. But yeah, actually something like that would be cool.
Okay, so all right, I'll incorporate all that and I'll take a stab at it with the instruct trial type, and I'll probably just show everybody either next week, or I can even send an email like, hey, does everyone think this is a good idea? And before we move on to all our other trial types. Like once we have it pretty nailed down with one, it should be easy to apply those same rules to the others.
And this would be really popular with demos, because when I did the demo of like, look how easy it is to do a CSS rule to change the background to blue, people were pretty impressed, but still, I was showing them CSS, so I'm sure for like the 10 seconds I was typing that in, it was just blank faces.
Yeah, like he's a wizard. He's
right.
Some sort of incantation.
Yeah, it's arcane to them, but if we can do it through the spreadsheet, and it's like, okay, and now if we add a font size column and say 200%, look, it gets twice as big. And if we add a background column and say blue, literally the keyword blue, we get a blue background. People would be tripping balls over that.
It was like, I'm losing my mind here.
This is too powerful. This is too easy to use.
Other than what I'm so thinking of that use case, immediately I know what's going to happen is they're going to go into the sheet in the middle of their experiment, edit it, and go, hey, it's not changing color. And then we have to go like, yeah, we read the sheets once at the very beginning.
Yeah, but that happens with instructions and everything else.
Yeah, that's true. So as long as we get them used to that way of thinking, like, okay, you can do this easily before the experiment starts, but if you're in the experiment, we're not going to read these values again because we loaded the sheet up. It's like you gave us instructions, now the program has its instructions. So if you change its instructions, similarly, if you gave someone a piece of paper, then wrote some different instructions and then give it to them.
I mean, it is possible to get around that. Like, what you can do is just what you save into session is the file unshuffled, and then you take the array keys and shuffle the keys, and then store the order of the keys. So they're like, oh, go to the next one. Well, I'm on 17, and actually the next one after 17 is 12, so go do 12. It's overcomplicated, achieves nothing. We could just tell people restart the experiment.
What it would achieve is that cool case of, like,
yeah.
I saved it, and then somehow those changes are immediately reflected within the experiment, which is cool. But yeah, that is a lot of engineering to give us that feature.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying that that would actually be really good though. If you could kind of, because I've been in the situation where I've just had to restart the whole experiment with piloting. So
yeah, and when you're like 70 trials in, and you're changing, like, okay, they're gonna do this 20-minute task, and then at the end there's 3 of these questionnaires, and you look and you go, oh, that one's wrong. Then you have to pilot everything again.
Maybe it'd be better to have this as a debug mode, where debug mode doesn't shuffle anything. And that way, because I was thinking, like, what if the thing that you change isn't the background color, it's the shuffle column? Are you going to, like, reshuffle the file again? And what does that mean for the trial type you're on? Because you could, like, you click refresh and suddenly you're not on an instruct anymore because it got shuffled away.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, if you're rerunning it without the debug mode to test shuffling, that's obviously less frustrating to have to go through multiple trials, because you would have to do that anyway.
Yeah.
Whereas everything else, if it's in debug mode, that'd be really useful.
Yeah, that would be.
Yeah, that'd be cool. So part of the debug tools is just turn off shuffles and reload procedure.
I mean, we could also do an approach like I used for settings, where I just say, okay, we load it, and sort of doing the same scheme like you're saying, Tyson, where you like hold it and then you keep track of the keys, but then all we do is say, hey, look at the file modify time of the procedure. If it's no different than last time, then just use what's in memory. But if it's not, then reread the file and update memory. So that would be immediately changes would pop in. There'd be a lot more checks happening. But if we do it exclusively for debug mode, where we don't really need performance.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was thinking using file mod times for my thing as well, just by saving shuffle into it. Like, say you have some instructions that say, like, oh yeah, on the next page you'll have a test, and then you realize there's a typo. When you go to change the file, you don't want to refresh the page and then suddenly your shuffles are different, so now you're actually on a different trial entirely. You kind of want to be looking at the same row, and then just what saving the rows in memory like that would let you do is, like, okay, reload the file, but then give him row 12, even though this is trial 6. So
yeah, which makes sense to me. That seems like reasonable, like an assumption that I'd be like, yeah, you're just going to give me back, like, whatever row of data I'm looking at to generate this trial type, get the new version of that line and keep showing it to me. Because, yeah, reshuffling would be weird because, yeah, things could go away and come back and it can get really screwy. But if we stick to this, like, show me the current line, it would be really nice, like Anthony said, to just not have to go back in there and rerun, like, the first 30 trials to test the 31st.
Yeah. And, I mean, this only would possibly break things in cases where you're editing the procedure file while experiments are going on, which is presumably just when you're testing it yourself.
Yeah, you shouldn't be doing that with live participants. Like, participants are mid-experiment and you're making the second half of the experiment. Like, I know you can be pretty efficient with Collector, but this is pushing the limits of efficiency. Like, I'll just start him and I'll figure out the rest of the experiment by the time he gets there.
That'd actually be kind of a funny strategy. Like, someone can't figure out custom feedback, or they're doing, like, elaborate feedback that can't be machine done, so they wait until you get past the test, and then there's a waiting screen, and then they type in the feedback into the procedure file and upload that, and you get it on your screen.
Yeah. Good job, you're so pretty. It's like, what? Nice shirt. This computer knows what I'm wearing. I love that band. Computer loves things? How advanced is this experiment that it can love?
Yeah. So this would obviously be a pretty powerful feature.
Yeah.
Definitely be downloaded.
Talk to some AI people. Like, is this how Skynet began? Custom feedback? Try to program a psychology experimenter. Oh. All right, I think that's everything, right? That's pretty much what I had to talk about. And then
Yeah,
Anthony,
I mean, everything else
and
that I wanted
stuff.
to talk about, I wanted to talk about with Adam. He's not here.
Well, we can try to corner him soonish. Oh, and for next week, so do we want to move it to Saturday?
Well,
Ooh,
I'm fine with either
actually,
day.
I don't. I don't know about that. Whether I'll be free next Saturday, but I mean, it's okay if you guys have a meeting without me on this occasion, because basically I'm just wrapping up the GUI. I mean, I might be able to make it, I might not. Sorry.
We can
But
also meet separately too if you just have like some small things. Like me or Tyson could just be like, "All right, let's talk for 10 minutes, and then we can give it to RAs for testing."
yeah,
yeah,
I mean, if we're not meeting with Anthony, then we Americans would probably meet at an American hour. Of this
yeah, actually.
godly 10 in the morning hour.
Yeah. Or actually, isn't this like the most godly hour? This too godly hour for Americans? Overly godly hour of Sunday morning.
Oh, yeah. I was more on the morning part than the Sunday part.
Oh, I was doing the interaction.
Yeah.
I mean, shall we say Saturday for now, and then I'll get back to you guys if that's a problem? Because I might be okay.
Yeah,
So,
that sounds good.
I mean, I'm good with Saturday.
it's just because I didn't see my partner on Valentine's Day today, so I'm thinking of making it up next weekend, which is why
It's like, sorry about
I
that
did go
one.
to.
Grad school's a little crazy.
Yeah, so I'll try and get to you guys as soon as possible. Thanks,
Okay.
That'll be 10 a.m. your time next Saturday.
Yeah, same time, I would assume.
Yeah, and we'll get in touch with Adam, see what's going on with him.
Cool.
All right, good to
And
meet you
anyway,
guys.
oh yeah, that's good. I'll send you an email once the GUI's all ready then.
Cool.
Cool.
See you guys.
Yeah. All right.
I
You
will send
enjoy
out an
your-
email when I have Get Data ready, which might be 2 days, but probably soon. Soonish.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sounds good, guys.
Great. All right.
All right,
Bye.
take care, everyone.
All right. See ya.
Bye.